You'll go in 10 seconds. Good evening, welcome to the Tuesday, June 10th meeting for the Community Development Advisory Committee. We have all members here except for we have member Steve Derbyshire absent with notice and member Wendy absent without notice. Approval of the agenda. Recommendation that the June 10th, 2025 Community Development Advisory Committee meeting agenda be approved as circulated. Sure. Oh, yes, go ahead, Director.
I'm just wondering, considering you need to leave early by 7:30 tonight in case we're not done.
We had it on. We had it by our administrative assistant down after 5.3. If you want to stay with that,
Then I will stop.
we can do it now if you want. It's up to you.
No, we'll let. It's.
We can amend the agenda.
Yeah, that's. I'm concerned that if you have to leave.
Oh, you want to amend the agenda?
Yeah,
okay.
that's all I want to do. I want to move it up so we can manage that in case you have to leave.
So we can approve it as amended to add the item.
Okay, so we have an add-on after 5.3 for the appointment of a vice chair. It's not on your agendas, but it's an amendment to the agenda. It'll be after ICE allocation review. So with that amendment, we're looking for a motion to approve the amended agenda and a seconder. Brad? And Steve.
Question, Chair. We're missing the attachments that were sent by Paul afterwards. Are we going to add those later so the public can see them?
Director, can you answer that?
We can add them if the challenge that we had trying to load them into eScribe was they weren't readable. So because it's such a large spreadsheet, so that's why we didn't include them and we just sent them out to the committee members as attachments. So we can try again, Melanie, but I know we had some challenges with that. So
That's all right. I don't want to change it.
Are you comfortable with that, Councillor Wilson?
Yeah, as long as we make them available somehow, even if they have to zoom in or something. I just want to make sure that there's nothing that's not, that we're keeping from the public. So
Yep, absolutely.
as long as we can make them available in some format. Fine with that. Second it.
Director? Good.
do they need, so I'm asking Melanie because I don't know how that's going to look on, or how you're going to load that up, because it came up very.
I can try to put it on like a ledger size page so they can zoom in.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So.
Okay. So we have a motioner by Brad and seconder by Steve for the amended agenda, including the appointment of vice chair. Do we have all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Any declaration of pecuniary interest this evening? Seeing none. Approval of the minutes. Recommendation that the Community Development Advisory Committee meeting from minutes from April the 8th of 2025 be approved as written. We need a mover and a seconder for that. Jagger and Councillor Palquin. Any comments, questions? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. 4.1 Community Development Advisory Committee meeting minutes of April the 8th. Oh, we already did that. Right, Mel? Okay. Number 5, unfinished business. 5.1 schedule of fees review, and I'll hand it over to the director.
Thank you, Chair. That's not what I want. So back, I'm going to say February, we sent out a request for participation to a number of municipalities. We had very little return, probably end of March, beginning of April. I sent out a second email, and then I've sent out a third email, and we finally got 2 came in this week. So we were scrambling trying to get that to inputted into the spreadsheet prior to the meeting. We got 1.5 maybe inputted, right? Maybe a third. So we've pulled. We used the same comparators as we did for the wage review, the compensation review that was done just last month. So similar size, similar square footage, but land mass and so on. So comparators that were approved by council for that wage review, we've used in this study as well. The spreadsheet, so there is, I believe there's 13 comparators that we've got inputted into this spreadsheet now, which was updated, as I said, not that long ago. The challenge that we have with the user fees, and I think you'll notice that, is it's very difficult to compare apples to apples. So an example being easy, it's easy to compare ice. You rent ice on the hour, it's either minor, so it's either non-prime, prime, or minor, and then there's the odd specialty fees, such as maybe a commercial fee, business fee, or summer ice, that kind of stuff. We all have very similar definitions for that type of product. But when you get into baseball and soccer, some municipalities charge per head, some municipalities charge for the season, some municipalities charge per hour, some municipalities charge for hour and a half. So it becomes very difficult to compare apples to apples. Same thing when it comes down to the community halls, as an example. We were just looking at St. Thomas's, and you know, they've got the Peter Lynch room, and they've got the Doug Terry Auditorium, and then they've got the auditorium at Memorial. We're trying to compare them. We don't know what the size of those rooms are. So it becomes very difficult to compare apples to apples. And I use St. Thomas because I used to work there, so I know the size of the rooms. But I don't know the size of the rooms of all of the other venues. So it just becomes very difficult. The takeaway, we haven't had a lot of time because the data has been coming in slowly over time. We haven't had a lot of time to sit down and analyze what's been taking place. One of the things I can tell you just from the quick cursory reviews that we've been seeing is we're in the ballpark with regards to ice rates. We're not the highest, we're not the lowest. The ball diamonds at soccer fields, again, becomes difficult for us to determine what everyone else is charging compared to what we're charging. The one thing that did come clear is there are several municipalities who are doing non-residence fees, primarily on facilities. So they're not charging non-residence fees for swimming lessons and that type of programming. They're charging it for an hour of ice time or community hall. There's a couple municipalities that do non-residence fees, but they're not charging for sports fields and such. So that's something that we as staff are going to have to sit down and take an evaluation to determine what we're going to come back to council with regards to the fees. So I will scroll through anything that's highlighted yellow. So you'll see Strathroy-Caradoc's name is highlighted yellow. That's a county of Middlesex. So Middlesex Center is right next door to us. They charge $196.62 for minor ice. We charge $200. This is all taxes in. They have an adult rate of $230. We have an adult rate of $230, but they have a business rate of $262. So if you had a private company coming in to run a hockey school, they would charge $262, not the $230. They have, again, their non-prime rates, 131, we're 118. We know that we may need to look at our non-prime rate, but again, as you go across the scale here, it's up and down. We're not the highest, we're not the lowest. And then you look at off-season ice. Again, we're 200, Middlesex Center is 174. Not too different. And then as we scroll through, we have a public skating rate of $5. We don't charge for public skating right now. Everything is sponsored. All of our public skates, we get businesses in the community are gracious enough to buy the public skating time. So it's for free to the public. So this is where it gets difficult to compare.
Just out of curiosity, what's the sponsor price?
I will have to ask Kate that question.
We do a $500 sponsorship. It covers the 2 hours of ice and having safety cruisers on the ice.
That's cheaper to Tri Township, isn't it? I was thinking I was on there a couple weeks there, and I thought it was for something for each week I sponsored.
Yeah, I don't know what Tri-Township rate is charging. They set their own fees, so their fees don't have to come through council. And as you'll see as we go through, now we're into the rooms. Again, it's difficult to determine who has what. Our usage has started to change with regards to the use of the Caradoc Community Center from more of a banquet facility to more of a recreation space, I guess Kate would be a better way of calling it. I know we're going to be holding some special events, like we just had the Middlesex Municipal Day there, and then we've got Teeny Tiny Summit, we've got a couple other special events. I don't know how many weddings that we have booked over the summer.
I believe we have 3 weddings booked for this summer.
So again, the meeting rooms become difficult. The arena floors, so this would be the dry floor, so when there's no ice in the space. Again, we're not that far off. They don't charge an hourly rate for minor sports. They just have a full day rate for Middlesex Center. So Ball Diamonds, they are another municipality that does per participant fees and so on. Their fees are slightly different than ours, but not a great deal. They're almost $40 for minor baseball. For participant fees, we're currently at $30. So there are some differences there. So I could spend the entire night going over and talking about this stuff, but it's not so much what we're charging, it's whether or not the spaces are being utilized. And we don't have, when I talk about ice, our ice demand is huge. We'll be talking about ice allocation coming up in a few minutes. But with the change in the borders, or actually no borders for minor hockey, the ice requests have gone insane, and which is something that we're not the only ones that are experiencing that. So, but as I'll stick with ice as we go across, because you'll see that we're not that far off other municipalities. Town of Tecumseh, right? They're $220. They charge the same for minor hockey as they do for adult ice. So there is no minor youth rate there.
That's a new rate too, isn't it?
I don't know. I'm not sure if Tecumseh's new or not. I'm not sure. But as we go across, whoops, went too far.
So Rob, maybe would it be better just to talk about what methodology you're going to use to determine pricing?
So with regards to ice, we don't want to be the highest, we don't want to be the lowest. We've always been in the middle. Minor hockey, we have typically been anywhere between 12 to 15% less than what our prime rate is. And that's what we've always tried to maintain. And we've tried to maintain that through the floor rentals as well for minor lacrosse and so on. The baseball, again, we're looking at more of what's going on in our area, so in Middlesex County, versus what's going on in the larger areas, because there are really our competitors. So again, we don't want to be the highest, we don't want to be the lowest. So we try to find the happy medium, and we've been successful over the years with regards to that. This is going to be a little bit more challenging. How we've determined our fees a number of years ago, and Councillor Pelican, you may remember this, council did not direct staff to achieve a certain percentage of cost recovery, but we've identified that in arenas, we wanted to be 50% plus cost recovery in operations. In community centers, we wanted to be 35% cost recovery, between 30 and 35. And then in parks and arenas, we were going to be 20, or not parks and arenas, parks and pools, we were going to be 25% cost recovery. We are around those percentages. Arenas right now are closer to 60% cost recovery, which is a good thing. But it could also mean that there are some other expenses that we're light on as well. Baseball, soccer fields, we're hitting those numbers as of last year. We were hitting those numbers, and the pool's around the same. We're hitting about that 25% mark. So,
Councillor Wilson.
Do we use microphones? Or?
Yes.
So on that, I'm just doing a little bit of work and just wanted to dive in a little bit to how much each arena costs, and rather than just talking percentages and different things, just there's a dollar value to each of those. So for each ice pad, and Director LeBourne, you can correct me if I'm off on this, but from what I recall, we're about $250,000 to $300,000 of subsidizing per ice pad, just for the operational cost, and then we typically have $1 to $2 million of capital that has to go into the arenas every year. So just to make up the difference, it looks like we're subsidizing somewhere, by my quick math, somewhere around the $150 an hour mark for ice from taxpayers who aren't using the ice before we count the capital. And I know we're talking about hiring more staff and putting more staff in this, so if we look at that, we're subsidizing just the arenas somewhere to the tune of 10 to 15% of our annual taxes. By the time you take into the capital. So with that in mind, is that where we're happy with? And I guess the other part of that is, where is private ice? I don't know if there is any private ice around, but I thought I recall talking with a discussion there was with a local hockey team, and that private ice time was $350 to $400 an hour. Just if you can comment on all of that part.
So I just pulled up on the screen. If the bottom portion of the screen, don't worry about the top, but the bottom you'll see the cost recoveries. For 2025, we budgeted aquatics for 30% cost recovery. In 2024, our actual cost recovery was 35%. Arenas, 66% is budgeted for 2025. We came in 2024 at 63%. Now, these are just operational costs. So this doesn't include any capital expenses that go into the arenas. We're just talking operational costs. If you look at the upper numbers, you'll see that we have $631,000 and $631,66,000 for arenas and taxation. So that's the amount of taxation that we'd have to run the arenas. The rest of it is covered through user fees and other ancillary revenues that we bring in. No different than aquatics. You'll see it's $328,000 with user fees of $142,500. So all of that is tracked. We even did 2023. So we know that our numbers are pretty solid with regards to the percentages of cost recovery on operating. We have never factored in the cost recovery, including the capital. Now, with regards to your comment about private ice time, if I was a private facility, your ice would be $300, $350, maybe $400 an hour. So I don't know. I've reached out to a couple facilities that I know that are private, trying to get their ice rates. One in particular, I haven't been able to get a hold of, which is the one I really, really want, because they have a relationship with the municipality, and the arena operator. So the municipality pays a certain fee for ice time that they purchase to allow minor hockey to use the ice surface. So, and then this private operator charges the municipality a higher number, and then they sell the ice back to minor hockey at the minor rate of $200 an hour, or whatever it may be, okay? I'm trying to find out what that number is. If we were charging $300, $350, $400 an hour, we would be breaking even. If we were charging $300, $350, $400 an hour, you wouldn't have people playing hockey, right? That's part of the challenge.
Councilor Falcon.
So in your experience with the provincial organizations that you've been involved with, are our percentages of cost recovery kind of in line with what others have experienced?
So part of the, yes, I would say ours are higher. Our cost recoveries are higher. If you go to the 2021 Parks and Recreation Master Plan, based on our cost recoveries, we were higher than all comparators that were looked at. So getting back to the user fees.
One other question. So in your methodology, when you go about establishing prices, would you at least look at what costs we know have increased for us? So like we know what our staffing costs are going to be next year. So would you at least do that as a minimum, or would you be more market focused as what you think the market can bear?
So we look at both. So we know when we do our budget calculations, that's why that spreadsheet that I had up, or that is still up, we punch in what our numbers are going to be prior to we coming to council. So I have an idea going into the council meeting what the revenues will be based on the ice that we've sold and the rate in which we're charging it at. So we try to maintain that 60%. That's the sweet spot for me. Although I would say even if we were recovering 50%, I'd be happy based on what I know other municipalities have. So we'll continue analyzing this information, and then our next step will be coming to council with an updated user fee schedule, which all departments will be presenting apparently in the near future. The request has come out for the data to get back to clerks so they can have something part of budget. So.
Okay, thank you. 5.2 Medal of Distinction Program Review.
Sorry, are we done on that?
Sorry, Councilor, I didn't see you.
I hadn't talked about anything else yet. I had a couple others.
Yes, absolutely. Go ahead. Sorry about that.
Would this be the time where we talk about if we want to look at different targets for a rate recovery, say on the pool? Because I'm looking at the pool and I see we're pretty low on that. And I also want to talk the same about the day camp programs, because when we're full, there's waiting lists. But I wanted to look at the delta there between where we charge and where private ones charge. We don't want to be too far under the other ones, because then we're limiting the registration of the businesses that are in Strathroy. I know when I'm looking at some of them, some of the registrations are like $500 or $600 or $700 per week, depending on the program, and we're $200. And I hear a lot of comments from residents that they're so cheap, they're not even looking at anything else. They're just booking their kid in every single week at ours, right off the bat. But I don't know if that's where we want to be, especially when we're subsidizing everything else. I think market will bear. We probably could go, I'd say even 50% higher on probably the pool and the day camps, and still have them full. Especially when we look at how much we're subsidizing the pool with only a 30% recovery rate. Are we going to be looking at those rates again too?
Director?
So the user fees for swimming lessons and public swim is another one that's relatively easy to compare to because a pool's a pool. And when we start looking at registration for swimming lessons, so we charge $76 from parent and taught program to swim kids. And then if I go, sorry, if I go across, let me pull up a different. I don't have the names of the municipalities set up on my screen here. So, swim kids up to swim kids for $76. Neighboring municipalities that have swimming lessons, swim kids for. So we've got one municipality that's charging $98. Another municipality is charging $112. Another municipality that's charging $71. Another municipality that's charging $10.47. That's per session. So to get your badge, you need 7 sessions. So that's going to be about $72. Then you got one that's $8.10 per 30 minutes. So a 30-minute lesson, I'm assuming that is, we do hour, Paul? Our lessons are an hour long?
It depends on the
Age group?
On the age group, yeah.
Right.
It could be
Another municipality, $78. So, you know, we're a bit all over the map. Could we go higher? Sure, we could. Are we going to have 700 swim registrations? Maybe not. The concern that I have about swimming is it's a lifelong skill. Those that don't have swimming lessons are more likely to drown. That would have to be a council decision with regards to those fees for certain.
Councillor Pammer.
Yeah, I think we talked about this last year too. I feel like we did. I would be opposed to increasing rates for public swimming and swimming lessons. Perhaps the competitive swim team, that's something to look at a comparable about. It would be similar to competitive hockey. And I also day camps, because it is daycare for a lot of people, and a lot of families are struggling within other pressures right now. So I would think that that's a role the municipality can play in trying to keep that at a control rate. I don't think this is the time to jack up those day camp prices.
Councillor Wilson.
So just as a comment to counter that, I don't disagree that times are tight, but if we're discounting these, we're just having every resident pay for them as well. When we look at that, if like we're already subsidizing our rec program, it's 10 to 15% of our tax. So if you look at what your tax bill is, 10 to 15% of that is subsidizing if you don't use the rec center, you don't swim. 10 to 15% of my tax bill, because I don't use any of those services, goes to pay for other people that use those services.
Councillor Pelquin and then Councillor Pammer.
Yeah, I'll just counter that by saying it's been like that since the eon of time, and I think people have accepted that. You know, you have young children for a short period of your life, and you want them to have the opportunity to learn how to skate and to learn how to swim, even if it turns out to be something that you don't use on a regular basis. Yeah, I would be opposed to, and if we wanted to look at a long-term thing, maybe creeping it up at 1% cost recovery over a number of years, but even still, I think recreation across the country is subsidized by the taxpayer. There's nowhere that is not. So the question is what's how much of the subsidy are you willing to bear, and how much are you willing to use to bear? And if we're above average, then I think we're doing well.
Councillor Pammer.
That's okay.
Okay. Paul, did you have your hand up? Paul Wetmore, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to mention as well, when we look at these rates on this sheet in the other areas around us in the county, Thames and Middlesex Center, we're the highest when it comes to the swim rates. So if we're looking at those in our area, we're certainly at the top of that scale with those other programs. So again, we decide where we want to be, whether we want to continue to go higher or we want to stay in that same range. So.
Okay. Any other comments by Councillor Wilson?
Once we set these rates, how often do we review them? I know it's, I've been asking since the beginning of the term. I don't think we look at them that often, but just, once we set them, how long are they set for, and do they index with inflation like the rest of the rates?
So we typically go and do a review of our fees about every 5 years to make sure that we're still in that ballpark of not wanting to be the highest but not wanting to be the lowest. They're indexed with inflation close to almost every year. So the year that inflation was like 7%, I believe we increased our fees by 5%. But then the following year, we increased them a little bit more than inflation to try to catch up. But we always do have an increase with regards to the fees. Is it always in inflation? No. In some cases, it's greater than inflation. So I'll use pickleball as an example. We've increased pickleball over the years probably by 50%. But 50% on X number, like on $2 is $1, right? So that's not significant. But every year we evaluate the fees to see what would be reasonable.
Brad?
Just one quick point. Either one of those programs, the camp programs or the swimming, all the fees would be set for this year anyways, correct? We could change nothing until next year at the earliest.
Any other comments, questions? Good to move on? Okay. 5.2, Medal of Distinction Program Review.
Again, I have this on here as just a reminder that we are looking at reviewing this. I haven't received any written comments back except for one. And if there are other comments, if you could get them in over the next month, let's say the beginning of July, because we're going to start revamping this program.
Councillor Pamela.
Just one thing that came to mind when I was looking at the PDF is it possible to make it a link to a form that you fill out online? Because I think, is it?
Yes.
Okay, you don't send people the PDF. Okay, perfect. That's all.
Councillor Wilson and Councillor Pelton.
Are we still doing the part with the forms where we have to scrub the personal data so that the committee doesn't know who we're talking about? Because that wasn't really very clear. I know when I did some, and I had some other people who talked to me, and then we talked to the committee about it, and we found out how much information was scrubbed out of the submissions just to take out the personal data, and I didn't see any notification that was going to be done on the form.
So the plan is to still scrub the personal information, so we don't know. So the committee doesn't know who the nominee is. It's a blind nomination. We haven't made any changes to any document yet because we're just in that process. So I've been waiting for getting comment back from this group before we start down the path of doing any significant changes because I didn't want to have to make the changes and then go back and make them again and have to revisit it a third or fourth time. But the intent has always been, unless we get direction otherwise, to keep it blind.
Councillor Pelton.
Yes, thank you, and I understand that this item is in front of us because of an issue that I had with some that I submitted. I tried to find fault to see why my applicant didn't get selected, and I could not. The program, I think, is written very well. I think maybe what we need to look at is maybe the scoring mechanism and what's the threshold, and I don't know that they were focused on just having so few people or if I just don't know why, but the program itself I think is actually written very well. It's pretty hard to find holes in the program as far as leaving it wide open enough for any type of involvement, and even the issue for the reason that I nominated the person, it's written right in there in clear black and white. So So I think really the issue more becomes, when you have your committee, what are the instructions to the committee at the start, and decide your thresholds on who gets chosen and who doesn't.
I'm gonna go back to Paul, who had his hand up.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think the program is set and strong, and what we've talked about before, which I think will make the biggest difference and probably support in people here that have made submissions is the form that we provide, and adjusting it so that we provide a little more information and questions for them to fill out. Because I think that's where we've found the biggest issue, is that we're not getting strong enough submissions because the categories that we have aren't leading them with the information that they need to give. So I think that's where we can support. As we go back to the drawing board with the form, we'll come up with some more questions and some more details in that form for people to fill out, because they're not adding all the details of what they're doing. They're writing these submissions like people know who they are, which kind of leads to your point, Greg, is that you don't get to know, because we want to keep the process the way that it is, but then it's written like you know how so-and-so has done all this stuff, and we can't read it like that. So we need to put the information in that form so that you can detail and put that stuff in that says, this is what they've done, this is how long they've done it, these are the different things they've done, this is the impact that they've made, and I think that's where we can support. So,
Councillor Baldwin.
One other thought I had when I was looking at who is actually comprised of the members, I was somewhat under the assumption it was always just staff. Do you have issues getting people, or are people happy to volunteer for this?
I currently sit on the selection committee, who I have for the last few years. There's been a few of us from the public sector, in addition to staff. Yep, and the director, of course.
We haven't had challenges getting people, they've always returned.
Good to know.
So they meet once or twice a year, it's not a big time commitment.
We've had a few adjustments where, like with the Conservation Authority, if someone's really busy, they just delegate it to somebody else who also works at the Conservation Authority. But no, we've never had an issue filling those spots.
I gotta say, it's from the municipality, like the municipality runs the process really well from a non-staff member point of view. It's tough, like some of the selections we've gone through in the past have been very difficult. Some you kind of have an idea, like they do their best to not make the person apparent to who it is, right? And then there's some submissions that could use a lot more support. There's other submissions that have a lot of support and a lot of description and all that stuff. But when we go through the things, and I wasn't involved this past year, but I was the last few years, we go through it on our own as individuals, and then we talk as a group, and the discussion part of it is very beneficial, because sometimes there's points that come out that other people around the table never thought of, and that can be beneficial when we're selecting. But it is a difficult process, to be totally honest with you, from someone non-staff wise who sits on that. Any other, Brad?
Just a comment about it. I don't want to say get watered down or anything, because I think the process is hard, but it's for that reason, really. And because I think it's a very important award that the town gives away, so kudos for keeping up a good job on it, because it's going to be important.
Any other comments, questions? Okay, we'll move on then to 5.3, an update on the ice allocation review.
So I brought this last meeting or the meeting before, I can't remember now, they're all blending together. The ice allocation policy, and the reason we're bringing it forward, we think the ice allocation policy is actually written quite well, other than minor hockey's removed borders, which has really made it a lot more difficult for us to manage the ice allocation. And I'll give a perfect example right now, because the definition of a minor sports organization, one of the bullet points is they have to have 85% of the participants reside in the municipality of Strathroy-Caradoc and surrounding area. Those organizations that represent a regional team program are exempt, so that'd be like Blue Water Hawks. But Strathroy District Minor Hockey is an example. If they have a significant amount of participants coming from the City of London to come out here and play in Strathroy, because there's no longer borders, and minor hockey, say it's a Bantam team, chooses, 60% of their participants are now from the City of London, are they eligible for the minor sporting rate? Based on what our ice allocation policy says here, right? So there's some challenges around that. And then if they're not eligible as a minor sporting organization, then are they eligible for the distribution of ice based on our formula that's in our ice allocation policy? So it's with minor hockey removing the borders, it is really, and it's not minor hockey, it's OMHA. With them removing the borders, it has made it a lot more difficult for us now to manage that situation. And I don't think we're going to have an answer for the next 2, maybe 3 years until this settles out. But Kate, you can tell us your experience in Park Hill.
My experience in Park Hill?
Yeah, you were telling us that there was a coach that only had 2 kids made it from Park Hill.
Yeah, so for the Park Hill U11 select team, only 2 kids made it from Park Hill. They joined with Luke and Ilderton, so of their entire team, only 2 of them come from North Middlesex. And their team came in second at the OMHA Championship this year, and only 2 of those kids made that team. So something that we're also experiencing, because all of the requests had to be in by May 31st for winter ice, and we have one minor sporting organization that has increased their request by 45 hours a week, which we don't have. And they are a Strathroy-Caradoc organization, so we are at the point where we need to now determine, do we look at this 85%? How do we move forward with these 2 minor sporting organizations with a limited amount of ice?
It was Councillor Peltman first and then Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, thank you. So I think from that description, I might have got my answer. What's happening is that outside of the cities, the amount of kids signing up for minor hockey has increased drastically, either because it's cheaper or because there's space and they're on it quicker than maybe our own local residents.
Or they're looking for a powerhouse team. Right?
There were occasions during tryouts where the first tryout you'd have 20 kids, and then London would make cuts, and then you'd have 40 kids, and then London would make their next cut, and you have 120 kids at your tryouts. If you don't get in London, you're going to come further out.
Councillor Wilson.
So listening to that comes back to my question, because I knew that when I was talking about the fees, I did know some of that stuff was coming up. So that's where I look at if there's less and less actually Strathroy-Caradoc residents on the ice, and the team isn't necessarily all ours, our taxpayers are still subsidizing that ice. So that kind of brought me back to the thought of ice rates, and if there's 45 extra hours that we can't do, there's definitely a shortage of ice, so that should allow us to maybe move that number up and get a little bit back. I don't know what we do to change that. I think that's a staff decision. I don't think we get to make that as a committee. But I would just say that supports higher ice rates and a higher recovery, and maybe we can get closer to not doing as much with the capital costs and everything too.
Councillor Pammer and then Councillor Peltman.
Yeah, so alternatively, do we look at prioritizing those teams that have more Strathroy-Caradoc residents on them?
The challenge is we don't know where the residents are. We don't take the registrations for minor hockey. So
maybe they have to submit a roster.
And that's possible. It is identified in our ice allocation policy that we can request for one. We have sent out on an annual basis a request for residency information, and I question whether or not the data we get back is accurate, which is a bit concerning. And that's like, that's it, like I'm just gonna put it out there. Mount Bridges minor hockey is not all Mount Bridges kids. Right? So they're Middlesex Center kids. Now, Mount Bridges use Middlesex Center's ice, but that is, you know, an organization that is now looking for more ice time, but 50% of their kids are from Middlesex Center. So are we going to displace potentially kids that are from Strathroy-Caradoc? So Mount Bridges minor hockey can get more, like, this is the difficulty we're in. So the instructions that I've given to staff is that we're gonna work off of historical data, right? If we have ice time available, if we have to move adult groups around to accommodate a few hours, but we don't have the ability to sit here and absorb 45 new hours a week. We just don't. Like, we would need to build another sheet of ice to accommodate that.
Councillor Kramer, quick follow-up, and then Councillor
Yeah.
Buckman and Jagger.
This is not just our problem, right? So it would be interesting to see how other municipalities are gonna deal with this. You know, what I'm hearing you say is like with Middlesex Center and Mount Bridges, it's almost a bit of a reciprocal relationship, you know, which, you know, it's a wash, so to speak. I don't have a problem with that, but I think we're just gonna have to see how it falls out, and, you know, if you could come back with, you know, in your discussions, I'm sure you'll end up having with other municipalities about what they're doing, until everybody kind of figures it out.
Yeah,
Director,
so
yep.
that's one of the reasons I started the conversation with Bob. This may be 2 or 3 years as we have to sit and figure out where this lies. Because once the dust settles, you may see associations may want to join. You may see that City of London all of a sudden has ice time because they don't have any kids playing in there. So we might be able to rent ice, or the teams may be able to rent ice from London. Like, we need to let the dust settle. The problem is we've got all this intake now, but so we're just gonna work off of what historical bookings have been and evaluate as the time goes on. That's the only solution we have at this point.
Councillor Buckman.
Yeah, I was gonna say the cost of trying to police who's playing from what municipality would be astronomical. But I don't know how the politics are, but if, you know, if you put pressure on the minor hockey groups to not accept people from outside the municipality, are they even allowed to do that now?
I don't know.
Sorry, continue on.
Sandy might know that.
What was the question, Councillor Buckman?
Just can, for instance, Strathroy minor hockey say, you know, if we don't meet the 85% threshold as a whole organization, you know, can we as a municipality then put pressure on the cost of the ice to force them to take 85% of municipal kids to keep the ice cheap?
So there's, one second, Jagger. So the Ontario Minor Hockey Association brings in that rule, municipality still has precedence, right? As far as their...
It's our ice.
Yeah.
So we can do what we choose with it. There are, as you looked at that spreadsheet, there are municipalities that don't have a minor rate. So Essex or Windsor area, Amherstburg, Tecumseh, they all charge one rate. And if they give a subsidy to the minor sporting groups, that's coming from a council directive. It's not coming from the reduced rate on the schedule of fees. So,
Jagger.
I just mentioned the last time too the potential issues with trying to enforce the percentage of participants issue, and I think a potential issue that you could see is a potential weaponization between potential leagues, as far as like, well, you know, a situation where, you know, I know that this team has this many people, and you know they're not being forthright with you and that sort of thing. So I think that's another issue that should be looked at. You definitely don't want to make the groups compete against one another and weaponize our own policies against us to try to leverage more ice time.
Kate and then Paul.
We do already have that.
Okay.
We do already have the organizations. Sometimes they go in and they check who's on the ice. They do things like that and then contact me. So this policy has been what I stick to. So I've been here 3 years, and this is it for me. So to have this updated and be able to use it, that this is what we require. We require an 85%. I have received the user data from the groups, and it's not accurate. But we don't have the manpower to go through the registrations. So I could request that they provide us the registration package and I go through it. I don't have the time. So that's kind of where we are now, is that we have to take their word. At one point we did get one for a smaller part of the municipality that every single child from newborn to 15 would have had to be playing hockey. So those are kind of the easy ones for us to pull out and say, we know that's not accurate, but we do already have that competition happening.
Paul?
Yeah, I was just gonna make a comment to Councillor Balkman that you asked if we're able to use that leverage, and I would say our ice allocation says that we can, because we stipulate that it needs to be 85% to get that discount. It's just whether we want to go down that road or not.
A full work week of hours being requested that the municipality doesn't have. Any idea how you folks are going to handle that?
It's gonna be based off historical data, right? So there's no way around it. And then what will end up happening is organizations are gonna have to put hard caps on their registration numbers, because they know they only have X amount of ice and they can only accommodate X amount of participants. And we don't have the ability to magically make ice appear. We do have ice that we could make available at 6 a.m. on Saturdays, but we don't see people using that because that's not convenient for them. But when I used to play hockey, I had 6 a.m. practices. So we may have to get back to some of that type of approach if kids want to be on the ice, or if organizations want that much ice time. We can open up the facilities earlier, but minor hockey is, and I shouldn't say minor hockey, OMHA doesn't want their kids playing past 10 p.m., right? And that's the oldest age group. So we're not going to be renting ice to minor sporting groups to 11 to midnight or midnight to 1 a.m., right? So there is some flexibility. We may have to move some adult groups potentially, but that's when you folks, and I look at the counselors in the room, will be getting phone calls, because I've had to do that before. That's what will happen. If we have to move adult teams to accommodate or adult groups, then the counselors will be getting phone calls.
For the record, some of my fellow officials referee at Western Fair Complex, and one of their games is at 1 o'clock in the morning, and it's an adult program. So, any other comments, questions regarding ice allocation? Okay. Appointment of a vice chair. So we obviously haven't had a vice chair for this committee since Adrian resigned. So the position would be obviously chairing a meeting if I'm not available. And pretty much that's it. So is anyone interested in vice chair? I'll call out again. Is there anyone interested in vice chair?
Someone can nominate someone. It shouldn't be a counselor.
Correct.
It really should be a member of the public.
Should I just play cricket?
Am I allowed to nominate?
Go ahead. Because no one's doing it, so.
I'll nominate Jagger. Jagger, do you accept the nomination?
I'll accept the nomination.
Are there any others that are interested in vice chair? Once, twice, allocated. Thank you, sir.
It's got to be the easiest role on the committee.
Well, yes, so I need a motion to accept Jagger as Vice Chairperson for the Community Development Advisory Committee. Councillor Palmer, Councillor Wilsey, all in favor? Carried. Thank you, Jagger. Appreciate it. Let's move to number 6 on the agenda, reports of committees and departments. Recommendation that the reports from committees and departments be received for information. Need a mover and a seconder for that. Please and thank you. Councillor Palmer and Brad, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. 6.1, progress through partnership and the 2025 list of projects. Director?
Easy one here, again, just the list that's on every meeting, just as a public awareness for those that are watching or review our agendas. So.
Okay. Questions, comments? Okay. 6.2, registration updates. Going to Paul here, I believe, for camp.
Yeah, thanks. Pretty much the same update as usual. Registration's going really well. I think we're about 18 away from last year's final total, so I'm pretty confident we're going to eclipse that again this year. We had some ice come available from one of our renters that wasn't able to use it, so because we had such a high interest and wait list for hockey camps, we've added a third one, pardon me, during the short week. I think that's August 5th to 8th, thank you. So it started to register already. I think it's about eight aside on that one. We're only doing 20 because of our staff complement. We want to make sure that we can continue to support the rest of the camps going, but it's a shorter week and not as many camps going, so we were able to throw that extra one in. But yeah, our registration's going really well. Our team is preparing. They're working hard at West Middlesex, getting things ready. So should be good. I don't know if we have any questions.
I have a question. Based on what Councillor Wilsey said earlier, are you capped now as far as amenities and variety of camps and staffing that can be offered? Like, are you capped in a municipality, you think? Or can you still grow, Paul? Or
I mean, there's multiple answers to that question. Are we capped? Are there ways that we could provide more camp? Yes. Is there areas that we can provide the same sort of amenities that we have and quality of programs? I'd say we're capped. So we're pretty close to that number right now. You know, we've explored options that could expand that, like the pavilion at the fairgrounds. If we were to build that, that would add amenities that could add to camp as well and grow that number. To be transparent, the reason we're successful as we are is the pool. That's where the majority of our camps are, and that's what parents want to sign their kids up for, because the kids want to go in the pool every day. So when we move away from that, and the only time we really do is when we're a sports-specific camp or trades, and we're up at the high school or the Gemini. Other than that, our success has been found at the pool. So I don't see us building another outdoor pool anywhere in the municipality. So that's where we're kind of locked on those numbers. So
I appreciate you answering that. Thank you. Councillor Topman.
Since we were lucky enough, some of us, to tour the new fire hall and that they have a training room there, would the municipality consider stuff like the babysitter's course, and that would not be, say, summer traditional camps, but maybe stuff we could offer throughout the year, or even a first aid program, so some businesses don't have to hire that out on their own?
we have done a little bit of that in offering first aid courses and some training, and we did the babysitter course. I want to say that might have been pre-COVID. But yeah, we're open to any programs, and especially if we have a new amenity that will support that. But yeah, no, when it comes to programming, we're open to what we can do.
Yeah, so there's creative things we can do, and I've seen where there's been firefighter camp, right? So, or paramedic camp and that kind of stuff. So having that new fire hall with the amenity space that it has on the upper floor, where the future dormitory could be, the meeting room or the training room downstairs. So there may be some potential there in the future. Now I'm kind of speaking, out on a limb here because I haven't spoken to a fire chief or a firefighter. But just, you brought up the fire hall, and I've seen those paramedic camps and fire camps work in London, so.
Any other questions or comments for Paul regarding camps? Okay, let's stay with Paul with the swimming lessons.
Again, registration is going really well with that, with aquatics too. We're about 50 off of last year's total for lessons and swim team, and that puts us about 6 weeks ahead of last year's registration schedule. So again, I do think part of that success is we provide a competitive rate for people to be able to participate in the program. Our Can I Play 2 program for those programs, because it is out of some people's range for, and it becomes a financial barrier, so we are supporting there, but for the most part, our team has worked the pool around as much as they can to create space to add more programs. It's been tough to find more space, and I hesitate a little bit to say, because I know our aquafitters would love us to provide about 10 more programs a week of that, but we've tried to find space that we can add. I think we've added 1 or 2 more, and that's starting in July. We do well in June when the kids are still in school, but once we get to lessons, the pool's packed between public swim and lessons. So yeah, again, going really well. We're excited about the swim team is up a little bit again this year. We used to have really strong numbers before the pandemic, and it's probably the area that's taken the longest to grow back. But since we added the recreation team to the competitive option, it's grown back to a good point. So.
Not really a question regarding swimming lessons, but is the municipality hosting any big time meets or anything this year?
We're going to do the Stingray Invitational again. That'll be what we call Rib Fest weekend. So that's our opening tournament or swim meet. Gives the kids a chance to get in the pool and do some competition and get to know their teammates. So yep, I think we've got 3 teams already signed up for that. We'd love to get that number up to 6 if we could. And yeah.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Any other questions for Paul regarding swimming lessons?
That date's July 5th, just for the record as well.
Thank you. Okay, from the pool to the downtown market, we'll turn it over to Kate.
Yeah, so each of you got a market update from me today, and we wanted to make sure it was as relevant as possible for June 10th. So we are sitting at 27 seasonal vendors, which is, we are down 48% from 2024, which is about the same as 2023. The reason we are down in seasonal vendors, there's a few different reasons. The most notable is that we do not have any full-time produce vendors this year. In the past, we've had 3 seasonal produce vendors, and each have left for different reasons. So one is left for a health concern. We're hoping he'll be back later in the summer, but also wanted to take his time in recovery. One left because they did not agree with our rain policy. We do have a pretty strict policy that if it is raining, that we close. Because we are on the street, the rain increases the risk of somebody driving through the market. So we do close when it rains so that it's safe for all of the attendees and the vendors. In the past, we have had a rain backup of the arenas. They're not well attended, and the vendors weren't interested in continuing on with that. And then the last produce vendor did go to a different market because we do not go until mid-fall. The cost of running a market all the way until mid-fall when we no longer have a summer student is not worth it when it comes to the budget. We are up almost 20%, 19% in occasional vendors. So we have 332 booked occasional spaces. So that could be vendor multiple times, it could be different vendors, but those are 1 week offs. And our night markets have grown significantly. So this information does not include the addition of the September night market because there was nothing to compare it to. Next year's update will include that September night market, but we have added a third one on September 20th. We're up 20% in night market vendors. So looking at our first night market of the season, which is the May long weekend, in 2023 we had 51 vendors, and in 2025 we had 81. So we went up 30 vendors in 2 years. And if anyone was at our night market this year, you'd see how much it's grown. It was busy. There were people all over the place having a really great time. We get a lot of positive feedback for our night markets. Our average vendors per week are 45, which is a decrease of 2.7%. That will change as the season goes on. When growing season, or I guess harvesting season starts, we do see an increase in those produce vendors. But something to keep in mind is that we're not a farmer's market. So to be considered a farmer's market, you need 51% of your vendors to be produce, which is just not achievable, especially when you look at our night markets. So that 81 vendors, 42 of them would have needed to be produce for us to be considered a farmer's market. And that capacity is not there for that. So with the Middlesex London Health Unit, it does make it harder for farmers to sell things in these shoulder seasons. So if you're canning at home, you can't sell that at a vendor market. That's something that can be sold as a farmer's market though. So that's kind of where we see that those issues with having produce market vendors early in the season. Does anyone have any questions?
Any questions for Kate? Councillor Wilson.
It actually went around the farmer's market. My question is where that requirement comes from, because when I go to, there's another farmer's market that's close to Mount Bridges in the neighboring municipality, and I walk through there, and there's no way it's 50% of produce vendors, yet there's still a farmer's market. So I guess I'm just questioning a little bit of that, because I read that 50% required to be produce. I'm not saying it's wrong, but there's other markets who, like, I'm gonna say it's probably less than a third are actually produce vendors, and the rest are selling wine or meat or different things like that.
Wine and meat are considered farmers. They are produce or products that are created by them. So that can be considered. I don't know about wine, but I know that meat products can be. They are still considered farmer products. A lot of markets will say they are farmers market, but they're not legally. So we work really closely with the Middlesex London Health Unit. And if it's the market that I'm thinking, I believe that they are. I think that their overall vendor count is over 51%. And they're a bit of a smaller area market, so that their footprint is smaller, so they have a different vendor count. But this comes from the Ontario government, and then it's enforced by the Middlesex London Health Unit.
Any other questions? Councillor Kramer.
What is your overall take on how the market is going? Are we growing? Is it still something you see, viable for the upcoming years, or do you think that it's a change? Because we all know in events sometimes things peak and then they start to peter out, and you have to change them or do something different. So I'm just wondering where you think, as an event planner, we are in the cycle for a downtown market.
So reviewing the numbers, we are on track and somewhat growing. In my personal opinion, I think that our market is struggling for vendors. I think we have a lot of very similar vendors who we turn away. We keep it as 6% or less when it comes to the market makeup. But not having those produce vendors is very hard, and it will affect other vendors as well. So I think we're in a transition year, but the market is a lot of work for not a lot of staff.
Yeah, go ahead, I had a question too, but.
Yeah, just a
go ahead,
follow-up.
Councillor.
Why do you think we don't get the produce vendors? Like, why would they not choose Strathroy? Why are they not choosing Strathroy?
For a couple reasons. In my personal opinion, I think if we started the market later, if we ran a June, July, August, September market, then we might see more of that produce. But we don't have the staffing complement to do that because we run with a summer student. So she leaves, or they would leave at the end of August, and then we would have to figure out how to staff for 6 or 8 additional weeks on weekends. And I think it's just not as accessible for them, not being able to sell those things that they've made at home at our market.
So I'm kind of glad that Kate mentioned something, because I had a question, I didn't know how to phrase it, because I know the municipality operates the market or whatnot. Do you think it would be more successful if we had less markets? Maybe first Saturday of the month, or maybe 2 markets a month, or maybe a day market first Saturday of the month and then a night market near the end of the month or so. You know what I'm saying, Kate?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I think we would be really successful if we ran 1 night market a month. I think that we would see a lot, but I also see the benefit for the downtown businesses and the vendors who do come week after week. And I think I've seen other markets who do like every second Sunday. And people in the summer especially aren't looking at their calendars. They're not coming to those dates, and it's not successful for them. So I think consistency is important. We've also discussed shrinking the market footprint. So instead of having Front Street and Frank Street, doing all of Front and having more of like a streamlined market. But does that answer the?
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. No, thank you for, I appreciate that. Any other questions? Councillor Wilson?
Just 2 quick ones. With the rain policy, we had the bollards installed in the roads to stop the cars. Do we still have to, I guess I don't understand fully the rain policy if we're worried, if the reason is because cars might drive through and we have the bollards installed and they're designed to stop cars coming through?
The bollards are not designed to stop cars. They're hollow. So if someone does hit that, you can go through it.
So on the bollards, we had this conversation earlier. The bollards that were installed in the downtown are not designed to stop a car from driving through. It'll stop a car if it gets bumped or someone hits the car and it slides into a bollard. It's not going to stop a speeding car. A Jersey barrier, a cement barrier across the road is not going to stop a speeding car. If you truly want to prevent vehicles from crossing or ram, is what they refer to it as, large events like the City of Toronto, City of Vancouver, they put dump trucks and front-end loaders across the ends of their streets to prevent that from happening. The bollards that we have installed have increased the level of safety from what we used to do, which was just purely a hunk of 2x6 and a couple legs on either end. So it's a market improvement from what we used to have, but it's not going to stop a vehicle. For us to put in a structural steel bollard that you would see, say, at the Parliament buildings, would be millions of dollars. We would not be able to do that.
Okay. And then the second question is more just clarification and ask of information. The rate collection of 16,000, that's what we've collected from the vendors. I'm taking it. Could you refresh me to what the budget line item is for the downtown market? Because I know that is a separate item, and just that way it's clear what we're subsidizing for this too.
That is the anticipated, but we haven't, obviously we're not at the end of the season, but I can pull up the budget.
Kate, while you're looking that up, has there been comments or are are the vendors happy with what they're seeing? Is the public happy with what they're seeing based on, you being there on the Saturdays?
I can't speak to that because we've had such terrible weather. So, Saturday was sunny and beautiful, but it was also Community Fest in Mount Bridges. So we did have a lower number of vendors this weekend. But in the time I was there, the market looked busy and great.
Okay.
And we had positive feedback. But our biggest feedback is that we should learn how to control the weather. And then Paul looked up the budget line, and it's 19,000.
With regards to those bollards, I shouldn't say millions, I should say hundreds of thousands.
Any other questions or comments regarding the market for Cape? And right now the market for Saturday at the Hometown Festival is 17 degrees and 40% chance of precipitation, which means 60% chance of nothing. Let's move on. Just trying to help her out too, and me at the same time. 6.3 special events, Caradoc Community Center open house. Is this, Kate? Go ahead, Kate.
Yeah, special events. So we are hosting the Teeny Tiny Summit this year. So that is an event that is in partnership with the Rural Ontario Municipal Association and the provincial government. So we are hosting that on June 18th at the Caradoc Community Center, and registration is still open. We've extended it. The keynote speaker is Mandy Callahan. She is the Blue Collar CEO, and I met with her last week, and she is so cool. So if you're not registered, you should be. It's going to be a really great day. But we took the opportunity that the Caradoc Community Center will be set up for Teeny Tiny Summit to put together a Caradoc Community Center open house. So we have let all people who have rented it know about the open house, and we've also posted it publicly, so it's open to anyone to come in, have a look at what the community center looks like. So I get a lot of questions of people who want to see the space. They want to know how big it is, how many plugs there are, where things are, and get a feel for it that pictures don't always give. So on June 17th from 5 to 7 p.m. we'll be there, and people will come see the space.
Questions, comments? Councillor Wilson.
Just one on the Teeny Tiny Summit. I've had quite a few people ask me what the speaker's talking about. It's clear on the brochure who's coming, but I have no idea what they're speaking about or what they're doing, and people have told me that they're asking why they should register for it, what it is, and except for being called a Teeny Tiny Summit and the speaker's name, I don't have any other information on that. So is it more interesting what they're speaking on, why we should come, who should come? I feel like a lot of that was missing in the advertising.
So Teeny Tiny Summits have been happening since 2012, I believe. So they travel all over Ontario. I attended my first Teeny Tiny Summit in 2012 in Tweed, and it was a really great experience. I now drive through Tweed twice a year and stop in and see the people that I met there. So our keynote speaker, she's the Blue Collar CEO. Our focus is on trades. We have a really great trades program in Strathroy-Caradoc, and Mandy had heard about it. So she is a public speaker, award-winning author, HGTV host, and CEO of Freshco, not the grocery store. It's a retail construction service. So she's a passionate advocate for women in the trades and is involved in a variety of groundbreaking mentorship initiatives, especially for girls and women seeking meaningful careers. So that's what we have from her there. So that's our keynote, but that's only one part of the day. We have in the agenda, we have a mini FICE. So the Roma has traveled to Strathroy and done a First Impressions community exchange. So that will be at the start of the day. And then we also have our Local First initiative. So that's collaboration between the Chamber, the municipality, the Mount Bridges Business Association, and the BIA. They'll be speaking about that Local First campaign. We also have a number of breakout sessions. So when you register, you can pick There's 7 breakout sessions and you can pick 4 of them. We'll get you in for 3. So I was working through that today and there's some really cool stuff. A lot of those are led by staff. So we have also the Middlesex Hospital Association, I think. They're coming in to do a part of it, as well as Middlesex County. What else is on that agenda here?
That agenda is on our website as well, with details of all the things that are going on, if you want to share that.
Okay. Councillor Pell?
Sorry, what was the time of the open house?
5 to 7 p.m.
5 to 7.
on Tuesday the 17th.
Now, is this a one-off or possibly a series moving forward, or?
The teeny tiny or the
The teeny tiny, sorry.
Teeny Tiny is most likely a one-off for the next few years because they cycle through small towns in Ontario.
Okay.
So I should have probably mentioned, the Teeny Tiny Summit is a rural economic development meeting. And it's a day-long meeting that people can come together and you discuss rural economic development and how it's different from big cities and things like that, and how you can collaborate and work together with the people in your areas.
The last one in the area that I was aware of was Thames Center in Dorchester, out at one of the, I say Purple Hill, and it was well attended.
Any other questions regarding, Sherry?
Great idea on the open house for the community center and stuff, because talking to some new residents from the area and stuff, didn't realize that they could just rent individual rooms within the community center, that they were just under the assumption they had to rent the whole entire thing. And so being able to, like, you know, instruct them to, like, you can go to the website, you can check it out. Sometimes they weren't finding the website friendly, just hard to find the information that they were looking for, but that's great.
Any other questions or comments with the open house? Okay, let's stay with Kate for Ribfest.
Yes, so up next is Ribfest, Strathroy Ribfest, July 4th, 5th, and 6th. So we have 3 concerts on the Friday and the Saturday night, and the rib vendors are coming back as well as some food trucks, and the Strathroy Rotary will be running the beer tent, which I know for some people is the most important part. So that is July 4th and 5th from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. and July 6th from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Questions on Ribfest or comments? Okay. Movie night with you again, Kate?
Me again.
Yeah, okay.
So we just did a movie night in Mount Bridges on Saturday that was really well attended. We did Dog Man, which is a great movie if you haven't seen it yet. July 12th is our next movie night. It will be in Strathroy at the fairgrounds, and we have Minecraft, a movie playing. And then following that, we have one, I think it's August 17th in Mount Bridges, and that's Night at the Zoopocalypse. It's August 16th, sorry. And all of these movies are sponsored by Main Street Credit Union.
Comments, questions, movie night? Okay, thanks, Kate. Announcements, inquiries by members will go around the shoe. We'll start with Brad.
Nothing tonight, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Pugman.
One of the things that I'll bring to the public's attention and maybe to the other committee members is, you know, we talk about how successful all the programs are, but there's another component to it that greatly affects the operations at the town hall, and that's the onboarding of all the staff. So we hired how many people for the summer programs?
We have 85 seasonal staff for community services.
So if anybody's ever been involved in onboarding, that's 87 people you gotta provide women's training for, 87 people, you gotta standard policies that you gotta read and sign, an orientation of some sort. It's a lot of work. Yeah, it's as much as a successful story, it becomes a struggle for another department, which is our HR department, which has total staffing capacity of 2 and a summer student. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Palmer.
Nothing.
Kate.
If you haven't registered for Teeny Tiny Summit, please do.
Paul.
I'm going to start with bidding best wishes and a fond farewell to Nikki Bolton. Today was her last day as our recreation program coordinator, so she's moved on to a new position closer to home, so we wish her the best of luck. And I'd also like to take a chance to, the opportunity to thank the team that I supervise, and Councillor Puckman has just mentioned the amount of summer students that we're going to have that are already started working to prep for camp, and also those that are braving the wonderful weather we've had at the pool and still providing programs already since we've opened there. And then, if I didn't mention the rec staff that are still running programs, and then Kate, who runs around all the time, and I know sometimes there's questions about what our team does and what our staff do, but you can see that when she's here till this hour at night for meetings, and she's doing open houses at Caradoc Community Center, and she's doing movie nights, and she's doing night markets, and she's doing Saturday markets, and we're booking ice during the day, and we're yada 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 yada, right? There's a lot going on, so I think it would be good to take this opportunity to thank the team, and especially I'm going to thank Kate, since she's beside me, for the hard work that goes into making our programs as successful as they are.
Well said. And for those of you who see a small little pink rubber duck at your seats, that's courtesy of Nikki Bolton, from what I understand. So, Councillor Wilson.
Nothing tonight.
Jagger.
Nothing for me.
Thank you. Jerry?
Just wanted to say that I hosted a really great Battle of the Bands back in April. It went over really, really well. Thank you for the support from the municipality on that as well. We were able to raise over $11,000. So we are getting our sound system in Caradoc Public School. So that is an amazing feat of just doing that for a one-night event. And it was very well received. The public has had nothing but good things to say about it. And I didn't have to write one incident report.
Thank you. For someone who was one of the many participants at that event, it was very well run, very well organized. It was a really good time. Director?
Nothing for me tonight.
I'm going to add to something Paul said, because Kate's very busy this week, because she's also our municipal liaison, our hometown festival committee. So she's got a very busy week ahead of her, and she does a fantastic job keeping people like myself in line. We kind of get out of line. So thank you, Kate, for the work that you do. And the hometown festival is this week, for those of you who don't know. Starts Thursday. It's 4 days for the first time in its history. Starts with a Thursday night concert. So StrathroyHometownFestival.com. And apparently the Warden's Golf Tournament is next week, and I think Paul and I are playing in it. I think. Oh, you didn't know? You'll get the vacation request shortly. Schedule meetings at the call. 2 weeks maybe. At the call of the chair, or September 9th, whichever one comes first. Other than that, we need a mover to adjourn. What's that? What did I miss? I need a second or two? Okay. Need a mover and a seconder to adjourn. Councillor Puckman and Brad, thank you very much. Enjoy your evening. Good night.